changing is a tactic used throughout the animal kingdom, but why does this fishy predator get shinier when it pounces? Because this fish may contain science. Meet Marlin. The striped marlin is a billfish named for their pointy snoot and not because they're going to send you an overdue notice. To Marlin's left, in the background there, you can see his friend, Marlin. No relation. You can see Marlin's buddy Marlin in there because striped marlin sometimes form hunting groups to go after schools of fish together. Sometimes a bunch of marlins surround a school, cutting off their escape. Sometimes marlin hunt in smaller groups or pairs, but no matter the group size, the strat is the same. Marlin dashes in and goes for a bite. Then Marlin, no relation, takes their try. The one-at-a-time approach is common in group hunting marine predators, whether billfish like marlin or in pods of orcas. And I can't say I blame them. I think it's an excellent strat, but it does come with one downside. Namely, if you don't coordinate the one at a time, oh wow, it goes real rough. I mean, I feel bad enough about bumping into someone in the hallway. I do not want to collide into a fellow marlin at full speed with that sharp snoot. But in a recent issue of Current Biology, current, like the marine scientists captured high-resolution footage of marlin and marlin hunting, and they did see one pretty amazing thing. When it was Marlin's time to take their turn in the one-at-a-time strat, their stripes got stripier. Their shine got shinier. Indeed, the footage showed that in the seconds before Marlin took their turn going in for some sardine, the fish's color changed in ways that enhanced their contrast. But how the heck can that even happen? To answer that, let's talk about animal color. In mammals, coloration comes from the melanocyte, a cell with a specialized organelle called the melanosome that produces melanin, that gives us long-lasting pigmentation. Birds have a larger range of pigments, including melanins, but also keratines and citicofolvins. Birds' larger range of color, like pretty peacock shades, also come from finessing the ultrastructure of the feather itself so light scatters around, giving you blue and green and even a little shiny. But mammal and bird coloration is in for the long term. The pigment we produce as humans is transferred to keratinocytes, which hang onto the melanin, and bird structural coloration is, again, built into the feather itself. That means our coloration can't change at the drop of a hat. As a melanin-producing cell, I can't just yoink back the melanin I transferred to someone else, and as a bird I couldn't change the shape of feathers I already have. That's why you don't see mammals or birds that can rapidly change color like a chameleon. And that, in turn, is because chameleons, like other reptiles, amphibians, fish, cephalopods, and so on, do coloration a little differently. They do it with chromatophores. Like birds, animals with chromatophores get color from pigmentation and from structural coloration both. But these coloration elements are part of living cells rather than non-living tissue. And unlike non-living tissue, living cells can respond to stimuli, allowing them to rapidly change color. Here is a microscopic close-up of fish melanophores. Their melanosomes dispersed throughout, but then, as we see, the fish's melanophores respond to adrenaline. So, when the cells received that signal, the melanosomes slurp up tight into the center of the cell. And, when zoomed out, the fish will look lighter as a result. Which brings us back to Marlin, shown here getting ready for Pacific Fashion Week. We can see Marlin has alternating stripes of dark and shiny, each from their respective flavor of chromatophore. The dark, we just learned about, comes from melanophores, the chromatophore counterpart to our melanocyte, but fish's shiny comes from iridophores, like iridescent. The iridophores actually have little plates of guanine crystal in them that reflect light and give them a shiny appearance. With these stripes, it's not that all dark stripes are oops all melanophore and shiny stripes are oops all iridophore. The iridophores are in a layer under the melanophore, so you got both chromatophores in both places, but on the dark parts of the fish, you got tons of melanophores, and on the shiny parts, you only got a few. Let's look at this adrenaline-stimulated melanophore contraction again, and imagine that zoomed out, we would see the white as shiny. If those handful of melanophores all over Marlin's shiny stripes slurp up tight, that raises the contrast as the shiny gets shinier. And the end result is not subtle. In this figure from the study, A1 is actively procuring supplies for sardines on their pizza. Look how much stripier A1 looks in contrast to R over there nearby. That is not individual variation. A1 goes back to comparable low contrast to R after they finish their dine and dash. In this photo, A2 is the second attacker. After A1 pulls away, A2 is going to go in next, allowing for a constant barrage of strikes as the fish trade off, with A2's stripiness increasing before A1's ever really meaningfully decreases. So now we know how Marlin's stripes get stripier. The contraction of the melanophores, exposing the underlying iridophores. But why do they want that? A couple possibilities. One is that stripes and shininess are both visually confusing, which means that sardines might not know which way to turn to escape. Classic dazzle camouflage. But here's the thing. Dazzle camouflage is always useful. So if this extra stripiness is for the sake of confusing prey, why isn't it an always-on ability? Moreover, how come it only happens when they specifically hunt groups of prey? And I say that because our researchers found that when Marlin hunted solo sardines, they didn't increase contrast, which suggests it's not just a physiological response to the hunt itself. No. It was only when they went after schools of sardines that the attacker's extra dazzle activated. That leads this study's authors to offer a cool idea, that the high contrast isn't to confuse prey, but for their fellow marlin, in order to coordinate attacks on schools of fish. Remember at the beginning of the story, I talked about a group hunting strategy where one fish goes in and they all take turns, and how it's really, really important to wait your turn or else you'll crash into one another and everything would be chaos. These marine scientists suggest that the change in contrast is a way of signaling to other marlin, hey, I'm about to go in. That kind of precaution isn't needed when you're going after one fish. That's not exactly a taking turns kind of task. But when the marlins have to quickly coordinate, the whole group can literally see what's coming. Among marine species that use this one-at-a-time strat on schooling fish, different species have different approaches to coordination. Highly social species like orcas solve the coordination problem, surprise, surprise, with social solutions. Each individual has a different role in the hunt, and they communicate with their characteristic cliques to further coordinate, which has the added benefit of disorienting their prey. Marlin, however, aren't known to have complex social structure like orcas, nor are they known for sonic communication. But color changing, though? That works with Marlin's highly visual hunting style, and because chromatophores allow this species to rapidly change color, and we're talking like over the space of a few seconds. Each fish could see who's going to go next in the lineup. So, what have we learned from all this? We've learned that human and mammalian and bird coloration in general work differently from reptiles and amphibians and fish and so on, and that's why they can change colors and we can't. Plus, we may have learned a new use for their color change ability. We're used to color changing being used for signaling mates, for intimidation, and very much for camouflage. But this interpredator communication is a different idea entirely. And what comes next in this research? These marine scientists have said they're looking to capture footage of solo hunters to see if they still change color when going after schools alone, which could potentially confound the intermarlin communication hypothesis. They've also said they've captured footage of other predatory group hunters, such as sailfish and mahi-mahi, that do have this, that in fact have even more dramatic and pronounced color changes, indicating that this color change ability may be conserved across fish families. So until we hear more, it's a good thing I can't change color. I'd be green with envy.